I'm doing a video today on Madonna, some occult things that I've seen her post. These screenshots are actually old. I actually took them, you'll see, I think the dates will be on there, but I took them whenever she tweeted them. Most of them are from Twitter. It's just some things that I've noticed, and it just kind of confirms everything that I've already suspected and thought. I do want to preface this with saying this isn't about Madonna. It's about something that I've been trying to highlight for a very long time, and I would call that death culture, or like a death mind or something like that. Primarily I call it death culture. The internal, the more esoteric things is actually more true and more useful than focusing on a person, because I don't think the person really matters. There's going to be more like her. There's people like her before her, and there's going to be people like her after her. You know what I mean? This is about Madonna and primarily what I believe is Saturn symbolism. Let me start here. It seemed at the time she adopted a new persona called Madam X, right? And I already knew where that was going as soon as I saw it. I think I went to her Twitter to see what she said about COVID, honestly, and then I just stumbled upon that, and it makes sense. It all made sense. And this is kind of what I was getting at, where I did videos in the past on certain symbols, but this isn't a video on proving that X is a Saturn symbol. I have a video on that. I'm probably going to do another one. And if you care, like I said, just comment and I'll send you the video. I'll send you a link or point you to my old channel where you can find video where I talked about this for like an hour or an hour and a half or something and gave 30 examples. For now, I'm just going to use this one because otherwise the video would be way longer than I want it to be. The Phoenician Ta is right there, the X. The Ta was a symbol of the end, okay, right? The end. And Saturn, among other things, is time and death. It's the end, the ultimate fate of every living thing. All the things and like philosophies and emotions that can come from that fact, right? That you're gonna die and everyone you care about is going to die. It ties into the futility of it all and all that stuff, okay? And that's the thing you gotta understand. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, a symbol's worth a million. Things are abstract, and I'm just one person. I don't claim to know all the facts about it. I'm not gonna be able to lay out the layers for you in one thing. You're gonna have to kind of see it enough times and start to think about it on your own. I can help, but I can't do everything. The African Saturn, so right there, the African Saturn, Baal Hamon, was the national god of the Libyo-Phoenicians. And again, the Phoenicians are famous for being, that's another video, right? Doing one on the Phoenicians. I'm not a historian, okay? And I know the Phoenicians were popular, famous for being like merchants. They were famous for their purple dye, which is another thing, the purple. Tyrian red or Phoenician purple or something, and they got it from like snails, I think, on the coast. They were a seafaring culture, merchants, seafaring type of civilization, from what I understand. They were also famous for ritualistic human sacrifice to Moloch or Baal, which I think a lot of the times these names are interchangeable. For example, let's just take the obvious example, Greek and Roman. You have Kronos. The Romans just called it Saturn. The Romans just called it the name of the planet, Saturn. The Greeks would call it Kronos. He's always depicted as, a guy, which I kind of disagree with the it being masculine, or it definitely, it's not really the topic of this, but they'll depict it as what you would think of as, time or a Grim Reaper type force. And when I say death, I don't always mean the end of your physical body. That's what I mean by the layers to it. And like, death kind of has a multifaceted meaning, like symbolically and like in literature kind of speaking. It's not just oh, you're dead, which it is that, but it's also not just that. X, which Amjanin has identified as either a solar symbol or the abbreviation of Expavos. That is Saturn. It is an overlooked fact. Anyways, so the point is, like I said, if you want more on the X thing specifically, I'll point you to a video for it. I'm going to do another one. Just for now, even if you don't believe me, that's fine. Just check out that video or watch my new one whenever I make it. Even, just like a little bit off the top, right? Like, pirates. I remember seeing on HBO Max, there's some new pirate show. It's called This Flag Means Death. Sure, it's got the skull, but it's also got the crossbones, the X, right? And if you look at flags that Blackbeard flew historically, there's some debate about whether he flew them or not. There's like a skeleton, stabbing a heart, which is just all this stuff, and what's Jesus point at? He points at the heart. Again, I'm going a little bit off the rails. And you see how easy it is for me to go off the rails with a topic like this because there's all these things that make sense at the same time. Think about how when a character in a cartoon dies or gets like incapacitated, they'll X out the eyes, right? When people were buried, they cross their arms like this. That's just off the top of my head. Trust me, there's a lot that points to this X thing being a symbol of like death and the end and all the things that kind of go along with that. So this is what I was talking about. Let's get to the topic of this video, right? Madonna. You have the one eye thing, which is a lot of people who exist in the conspiracy world will see, oh, the magazine cover with the one eye and it's like Illuminati and like, I guess so. Sure, it's weird that they all have to take a picture like that. That's kind of, I guess, like cliche is the word for it at this point. But it is worth pointing out that she is doing a one eye thing and she's got the X over the eye. This is where I'm starting to, it ties into what I've already suspected about this stuff. So, Madam X is a masochist. When I talk about death culture, there's so many things I wish I could tell you guys that I've seen over the years. I don't even know how to, I don't even know where to start. I'm trying to do it in the most down-to-earth way where people will hear me out and not just like write me off as like a crazy person. But being a masochist, right? Like liking pain and like suffering and stuff. And that's kind of a key element to like the death culture thing that I've been describing. That's one way I bring it out of the occult and the abstract into a down-to-earth kind of concept that people can understand. I think there's an increasing attitude towards this today. And what I mean by that is putting pain, tragedy, trauma, right, on a pedestal. And there's nothing wrong with and by putting it on a pedestal, I mean they're raising those characteristics and realities about life and elevating it to, they're arranging a hierarchy and they're elevating those things in the hierarchy to a paramount position. You could call it, psychologically speaking, they're making it God. Mediocrity, that's another one. And we're all guilty of this on some level. Nobody's escaped it entirely, but the difference is, it's even a Bible quote, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the verse, but it's something about a difference between a distinction to be made to someone who's reveling in sin rather than the guy who sins and views it as a mistake and tries to change, right? There's a difference there. And that sounds like a get out of jail free card maybe, but it's not. There is a difference between someone who just exists in sin, and I know so many people hear that word and their brain turns off because it's a Christian word, and they don't even like think about what that word could mean conceptually. Like you can make sin make sense even subjectively in your own mind. Like, oh, I have a goal. Well, anything that's not in accordance with that goal is my God. Anything that's not in accordance with that goal is a sin. It doesn't help me get to it. I'm sinning. If you believe in right and wrong on any level, then you believe in sin. I know that, like, I've said that word to people and they literally like puke in their mouth. Like the whole conversation's over because you used a word that they have like an idea of what it means in their head and they can't really like work around it at all. And it's lazy and they're not using their brain. I'm sorry, they're just not. Think about, someone that's reveling in mediocrity, debauchery, and when you smoke cigarettes, you're participating in this like death mind thing, okay? And that's what I'm saying about, it's not about Madonna. It's about identifying the spirit of this death culture thing and pushing it and having a change of heart to where you don't want to be a part. It's kind of like being born again, dude. And this is the real problem with the world, in my estimation, or at least it's closer to what the real problem is than a political guy. Like, oh, this Democrat said that, this Republican said that. That stuff doesn't even come close to the impact. This is how people are thinking, feeling, and acting and creating the reality that we experience. It makes sense that she would say Madam X, death, is a masochist. You like being abused. You like your enslaver. You like being punished. You like being, and that's the difference. They enjoy it. They revel in it. They love it. That's what we have to change about ourselves. And I can't imagine a life, forget about the world, you know, just think about your own life and your own ambitions. A lot of people think this is cool, so maybe I'm wrong, but it's kind of like when people see a singer that did heroin, they're like, oh, maybe that's, you know, like, that's the key, right, to good art is like suffering, man, and like self-pity and like all this stuff. And I see this attitude, this aesthetic, the pictures I have saved, the comments I have saved by the hundreds. You guys wouldn't even believe it. I'm going to make a series called Death Culture and just show you until it makes sense, that like until you know, you gather all these examples into like one image, and you can give it a different name. I call it Death Culture. And they're different words and different examples, but they all make sense at the same time, right? And that's kind of what an archetype is, and that's kind of what Saturn is, or X is. And this is where it gets even weirder, and I'm going to do a video on this, okay? And this isn't, you know, a bashing of any certain group. I'm sure you can imagine what I'm saying. Mood today, thanks for digging this up, blah, blah, blah. I should have clicked on that guy's account, too, to see who that was. Like I said, this was years ago at this point. She's wearing a shirt that says, up your bum. Now I'm going to do a video on that sex act symbolically. And I'm not saying you're a bad person or whatever, but I'm just talking about all these symbolic associations with it, particularly like excrement. I know that's like vulgar and gross. And it sounds, again, I know I sound crazy. I sound crazy to someone who's never thought in like a weird way or even tried to look at this stuff. And that's fine, but try to hear me out. It's not an accident that she is wearing a shirt like that. It fits perfectly. Like 2 + 2 = 4. Like you could count on it. You know, I tie it to the excrement thing and like flies. Some people, just to be brief about it, okay, I know this, I'm trying to like be careful with my language. A lot of the times, okay, X is Saturn, right? Black Sun is Saturn at the same time. One way people think about the black sun is as your rear end, okay? And excrement's viewed as another symbol of death. It's devoid of all nutrient. Like, I know that's weird, but there's examples. Again, I'm gonna make a video on that. If you're interested in, I don't want to say proved, because I always leave the possibility that I'm wrong. But if you want to see a case for that has this like symbolic, religious, literary association, poop and death basically go together. I think I can make a good case for it. You know, kind of like the fly. Beelzebub is one depiction of a demon, or maybe even Satan. He's depicted as a fly. He's the Lord of the Flies in the book Lord of the Flies. He's the corrupting force that drives the kids all mad and murderous. Think about a fly. You know, my friend one time was like, "Oh, what does a fly represent?" And he said, persistence. And I'm like, now I'm thinking about, this was years ago, and now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, that's one way to say it, is persistence. Think about how a fly, what they're drawn to, like corpses, and like how they behave in real life has some contribution to the way they're looked at symbolically and like in literature and stuff. It makes sense that they have that association based on what they do in life, like maggots in a corpse and flies around crap. You know, what do we say? We have that like flies to shit, right? He said persistence, the way they'll keep landing on it. And he wasn't thinking about it like that, but to me it's an insanity thing. It's like a endless cycle thing. It's like a cycle of mediocrity. It's like a cycle of self-harm, It's like a cycle of madness. You know, they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, that's what that is. They're just drawn to it. They're drawn to what's bad for them. They love what's bad for them, and they're going to keep doing it over and over and over again. Trust me, even if she's not aware of this stuff, which I think Madonna is, there's no way she doesn't have some level of understanding of this. There's zero chance of that. And that makes it almost worse because she's putting stuff out there for the public to consume, and they just think she's basically passing code right under your nose. And most people, I'm not trying to be like pompous, but most people don't understand anything about what they're looking at or taking in. It comes off as devious when you're basically passing code and like, ooh, I'm telling little secrets that you can't understand. It comes off as dishonest, right? Like you're doing things that people don't understand and you're putting it under their nose. It comes off as dishonest and mocking and just not good. And I'm not trying to be mean towards her. It's fine if you listen to her, I guess, whatever. I don't care. I mean, I say turn from this stuff. That's my honest opinion. And I think your participation in it is helping perpetuate it to a certain extent. And I think your participation in certain things speaks on your character as a person. And I'm not saying, that's fine. I'm just some guy on the internet. You don't have to agree with me. And I'm not trying to make anything illegal. I'm not saying hurt anybody or go attack anybody or insult anybody or go comment on her posts or anything. Like I said, I'm trying to focus on what this stuff means to you and how you should stay away from it. How I should stay away from it. Hope that makes sense. I know I went off on a tangent. This one is she's saying, let's keep dreaming. And it's getting like, it's almost just ridiculous. And let's keep dreaming, right? So Saturn is also kind of, not even kind of, it's tied to whatever you think of when I say the word matrix, right? Escapism, a running away from consequence, a running away from reality, or like, I guess, the creation of your own fake world. And I saw a video, right, of this Korean woman's child died at like 7 years old, and these VR, virtual reality developers, created a environment to where the mom could see a model, like a VR 3D model of her kid, and interact with the kid. This whole Matrix thing, and like that's an actually genuinely tragic thing, like a kid passing away. It's just unfair, right? It doesn't make sense. This weird unfairness and suffering that's built into life. This whole Matrix thing is like an answer to that, but it's probably the wrong answer. And most people that saw that video, I don't know how the mom ultimately felt about it, but most people who saw the video are like, this seems weird. And speaking of which, reminds me of another game called Beyond Two Souls. It's a video game. It has Willem Dafoe and the girl from Juno. I forget the name. Willem Dafoe's wife and daughter die. He uses a machine called the Black Sun. It's some large technological creation. They call it the Black Sun. Not an accident that they call it that. It makes 100% sense that they call it that. And it brings his wife and kid's soul from wherever they went when they died, like, the other side, behind the veil, in heaven, wherever they were, forces them back and traps them. Jodie is the character. It's funny, I remember the character's name, but I don't remember the actress's name. Has had this ability to be able to talk to the dead. Willem Dafoe traps his wife and daughter there. Jodie talks to him, and it turns out that they're like screaming in agony, and he didn't even know that. And they're saying like, "Let us die, let us pass." But it's just like, and this is like another way of like humanizing what I was saying earlier about reveling in pain and like making it all like a grotesque thing. But this is a way of humanizing. I'm still not saying it's right, but it's like being motivated by pain, in the sense that in like tragedy, that you basically lose your mind. And it's one answer for the suffering that exists, and it's probably not the right one, especially given all the twisted tie-ins that go along with these symbols. It really makes you doubt the sincerity and everything of this, giving the devil his due, like, oh, he's trying to help kind of thing, and like stuff like that. It really makes you doubt the sincerity of all that stuff. And at the end of that game, the Black Sun, the piece of technology called the Black Sun, goes haywire, and it ends up breaking the veil, which is like what's separating our world from that world, astral world, whatever you want, the realm of ideas, and whatever's behind the veil. It breaks that, and that's a theme I see a lot. Anyways, like, that's funny. I said all that, and right here it says it's hard to let go. Imagine I just said all that, and I didn't even see this bottom tweet. This is the first time I'm looking at them in a long time. How Willem Dafoe traps his kids there and all this stuff, and like in the game, I'm not talking about in real life. And she says X marks the spot, and again, that ties into the pirate thing that I was talking about as well. It's not an accident that pirates have that like story about them looking for buried treasure with the X marks the spot. Just the type of messages and like things she's putting out, it's crazy. It's too on the nose, and it makes too much sense given her new identity as Madam X, that she doesn't know what she's doing. This is her in her performance costume, just X across the chest, X over the eye. Nothing really new that I have to say about that. This is just a picture of her where she's wearing a shirt that says "Kabbalists do it better," and that's a little bit corny to like walk around and say like, "Oh, I'm into the occult. I'm an occult." Like just wearing a shirt that says that. But what I don't care. Not that I'm like gatekeeping that or something. But the point is, I put that picture in to kind of speak on the fact that she is a practicing occultist. I think Kabbalah is one of the most pervasive schools of thought, occult practices in Hollywood. I think Kabbalah is like number one, and it's just more evidence that she has some understanding of these messages she's putting out and puts some stock in the crazy abstract concepts that is the occult. And maybe you should pay attention too on some level, so she's not tweeting stuff out that you're participating in that you don't even understand what she's saying to you. You know what I mean? Last picture, again, it was just X across the face and Rebel Heart. I don't really have too much to say about that. You could probably figure it out. I hope some of that made sense, guys. I know I'm disorganized and I got derailed a few times, but it's how things go when you're talking about like big concepts. And I have so many different examples and they all make sense to me in that moment about they all inform each other. It seems like I'm jumping topics, but I don't, in my mind I'm not, at least. Hope some of that made sense. Thank you guys for watching.